Good evening. It is time for our book study group, Rise of the False Gods. Welcome. I hope you're looking forward to tonight as much as I am. If this is your first time viewing our videos, please know you can go to YouTube and type in Rise of the False Gods, Alicia Leslie, and you can see all our videos on this and other series. Also, know that I welcome questions and comments. I might not be able to see them because, for whatever reason, they don't scroll on my screen on the side. So, sorry about that. Anyway, I'm kind of excited. Tishy's excited. She came out right when it was time. She must really like having her moment in on screen or whatever. Just she shows up every time there's going to be a video. So she says hello, I'm sure. Look at that beautiful cat. Oh my God, they don't get any more beautiful. She's loud, so if she leaves the room, if you haven't been through this before, and she leaves the room, you'll probably hear her yowling. A lot of times it's as she's watching cat TV. I finally found a video on cat TV the other night that had cats in it. Usually it's mice and squirrels and birds and fish, but this was cats, and she had a grand time watching them. Right, Tishy? You had a good time, right? Pay no attention to you. Okay, well, tonight, before we get started, I have an announcement of sorts to make. I may be doing a time change. I may be changing it to 9 o'clock. And I know that might kind of like, I'm sorry about that. At 10 o'clock, a lot of the prime time stuff is come and gone. And I watch Rachel at 9, but I'm willing to put that off. Something has come up in my schedule, possibly, and so if it comes to pass, I'm going to be doing the thing at 9 instead of 10. So just keep your eyes on the. I'll always send out the notice and tell you what time it's going to be. And if you can't be there on the regular time, just know you can watch it when you get to it. It should be in your notifications, or you can check it out on YouTube. Just type in Rise of the False Gods, Alicia Leslie. Okay, so tonight we're still on the topic about it takes more than a village. And we left off yesterday. We were talking um, about being connected and the things that separate us. And you will find as we go through this, I do repeat myself. I repeat myself for effect. Remember we talked about before called the rule of seven, which is a sales technique. You probably noticed that a particular person that is um, on television a lot or whatever repeats the same thing over and over and over. And his history, of course, is in being a real estate salesman. And a few of the tricks of the trade of all salespeople are say it over and over and over again. It's called the rule of seven. If you say it 7 times, people start to believe it. Every time you say it after that, they believe it a little bit more. Okay, so we were talking about it takes a village or more than a village to raise a human consciousness, should we say? And we left off talking about the importance of family and having our house be a welcoming place for people to come. And I left off right where I was going to talk about Marlene Shuey's book, Simple Days. And I'm going to read from it because some of it is just so powerful. And if you're following along in the book, this is page 206. Okay. Um, a favorite book of mine, Simple Days, lets us peek into her journal where she spent 1 year exploring what matters most. and I'd like to share a few passages. She says, lately I've been thinking about the role of homemaking in our fast paced modern lives. For one thing for certain, in our rightful and necessary quest for economic equity and public voice and presence, something's lost and something's gained. In the words of Joni Mitchell's much loved song, what's gained is clear. Some measure of progress toward equal opportunity for women and the social recognition that derives from involvement in public life. What's lost is more elusive, insidious even. Okay. All right. So here's a little disclaimer time. Um, you may not agree with a lot of what I say or what she's saying here. All I ask, as always, is that you listen and roll that possibility around in your mind a little bit. Okay. What's lost is more elusive, insidious even. There's no home there's no one home to tend the hearth. Indeed, there is literally no one home making. Relieved to be rising in the ranks of the gainfully employed at last, we discover that Athena's the goddess of wisdom and protector of cities, is Hestia's loss. Hestia is the goddess of hearth and home. So, where we may be making progress in the material world, we are kind of losing it in the spiritual, or let's even say familial sense, the coming together. At the end of the day, what we go home to is not the welcoming aroma of freshly prepared meal shared with dear familiars, but a kitchen full of appliances and gadgets, the better to expedite dinner on the run before we head out to meet with our personal trainer at the gym or rush to yet another committee meeting. Who wants to spend the evening inside a home that isn't, after all? You know, that's powerful. I remember coming home from school when I was a kid, and I'd walk in, and my mom would always be cooking something good. She's a pretty good cook. She was a pretty good cook. I'm sure she still is out there in the other ethers. Um, but there was something about coming home and then sitting around the table and sharing about our day, and then the milk would spill, and then she'd say, "It happens every time," as she cleaned it up, and we are like, ah. They were special times that have become, for most people, part of the past. And for some people, they never had that experience. In my house, my children's homes, most meals are taken uh, by the TV. In my house, that's true too, but there's only me and Tish, and I could sit over at my table and sit all there by myself with nobody to talk to and have my dinner, or I can sit and at least have something to watch on TV that I feel a sense of being with somebody. Excuse me. Okay, so we're going to move on. Um, okay, wait. Okay, it would be. This is me. We're done with her quotes. It would be naive to think we can just snap our fingers and the nuclear family would return to 1955. First, while it was, from personal experience, supported by statistical data, better than our current experience. I was there, it was better. Okay, it just was. There was more connection. And I know there's people who will say, oh, well, we connect just fine. No, there's just Just put your seatbelt on and let me ride. Okay. Um, it still was not perfect. As we evolve, our paradigms of what a family looks like evolves as well. The divine idea remains the same, but we transform the expression. Children learn what they live and live what they learn. We can create an environment where the children who will one day be running the world and caring for us, and they will, um, will co-create a world better than we can imagine if we can overcome the false gods through the renewal of our minds. And what are the false gods? False states of consciousness, false beliefs in a sense of our good that really is just an illusion. All right. uh money can buy stuff, lots of stuff. It can buy diversions, but it cannot buy true happiness. Money can buy pleasure, but it can't buy happiness. Happiness is generally it's what we think that the thing that gives us pleasure is going to give us, but it doesn't. Okay. Okay, got lost again. Oh yeah. So I had, this isn't in the book because I wasn't thinking about it at the time, okay? As I was thinking about the Athena thing, the women going out there into the business world and making their mark and crashing through the glass ceiling and all things, which are well and good if that is what they really want. And yet, many homemakers are either embarrassed or ashamed to say that they are just a homemaker. Oh, I'm just a stay at home mom. It just, you might as well say you're a princess or a queen, because I'll tell you from having the blessing of being home with my children when they were small. Yeah, it was wonderful. I had the best of everything. Um, well, we're going to move on. But so I started to think about two words. And one word is ambition, and the other word is aspiration. I said to myself, what do we think of when we think of ambition? We generally think of someone that has drive. And what do they generally have drive for? Make a lot of money, have a lot of power, you know, get better than. I said, is there a good? Is that the best way to explain? I said, wait a minute, let me look up. I want to look up ambition, and it said ambition was it applies to personal advancement. Yeah, so that makes it personal, which doesn't mean it's principle. Now, there are people who work in all fields, including ministry, the medical, the business, and you can take someone that's in that realm and also a realm that works not from ambition but aspiration, and you got people working for wholly different things. So the definition of aspiration is striving for something higher than self, striving for something higher than self. That's aspiration. Remember, we talked about the word spirit meaning breath. So, an aspiration is like a spiritual, let's say spiritual ambition for what it's worth. Um, but when you have ambition, you're more likely to work for money, title, power, and whereas if you work for aspiration, money's like the icing on the cake. It's not why you do it. You do it because you feel called to do it. Doesn't mean you can't get rich doing stuff I go back to one of my, heroes, Bob Hope. And Bob Hope, he did so much. He made plenty of money. And he put himself in a lot of spots, but he also gave soldiers hope. And that's why I love that his name is Bob Hope, even though that's not his real name. First name was Leslie, just like mine. Somewhere along the line, he changed it, just like me. Okay, let's get past that. So if we try to think of that. Now you could split hairs with me and we could argue all night that ambition and aspiration are pretty much the same way, or you could, but that's not what we're here for. We're here, hopefully, that I can present ideas to you and you can roll them around in your head and see if it's true for you. Explore it, try it on, taste it, feel it. Okay. There are resources all around us to use as we mend our brokenness. We begin with working on our own lives as we reach out to others. We are divided. We are way divided. It's sad. We're separated in our families, our workplaces, government, parties, just so many ways we're divided that we don't need to be. We'll get to that another time. Okay. So we want to reach out to others, and we do this to both give and receive support. We become what we surround ourselves with. What are you surrounding yourself with? Remember what they said, the old saying? Like, you know what? I think I may be so old that a lot of people haven't heard a lot of my old sayings before. But an old saying, a old bit of wisdom says, if you sleep with the dogs or lay down with the dogs, you're going to get up with fleas. And so I give an example here in just a second. Okay. We become what we surround ourselves with. Here's an experiment. You might want to note this experiment so you can try it over the next few days and see how it fits. Okay. Uh, Notice if you are talking to a friend and that friend is in a bad mood and they're complaining and blaming and they're being miserable, you might find yourself adding a few of your own complaints and problems. Like, oh, I know. Oh, that's terrible. That's all what happened. You know what happened to me? And then you go off on your own too. And then that gives the other person more energy. And pretty soon it's a competition of who's got more to gripe about. Okay, it's contagious. It's a contagious state of consciousness. Now, so you can see where that's going. Now, observe when you find yourself in that position, observe what happens if you try to turn the conversation around, seeing potential for good outcomes. You know, it's like that's what, oh, I was in traffic today and this guy was just so slow in front of me. I couldn't stand it. He couldn't wait to pull out in front of me. And the minute he pulled out in front of me, he started going 2 damn miles an hour and I wound up being 5 minutes late for work. How can you make that good? Yeah. Hey, there is good stuff in there. I mean, maybe if you left a little earlier, it wouldn't have been an issue. Or maybe it was like an angel pulling out in front of you to slow you down because there was going to be an accident down the road that you avoided. So it's all how we choose to look at it. Okay. It's important to build connections with those who inspire and encourage. not those who try to influence or bring us down. Myrtle Fillmore, when she talked about the children, said, we are not here to entertain the children, but to call them out to come up higher. We want them to come up higher. You know, with my books, when I'm writing my novels, I always call myself the mundane mystic, which means I talk about putting spiritual principle into everyday life activities and how to work in principle to have a good and happy life. And so that's the part that we can play to encourage others and to inspire them. So think about that. And when you find yourself in the company of someone who consistently and repeatedly discourages you or brings out the complaint in you, maybe if you can't turn it around and get the conversation going in a better direction, maybe it really would be best if you just kind of went your way and just happen to be busy when they call, or keep it a happy conversation. When it starts to get unhappy, turn it off, because we're not just about avoiding people that tap dance on our nerves. We're about encouraging them and loving them through to a better state of mind. We have resources through our connections with family and friends, school, church, clubs, activities. So when I was talking about, you're running around all the time from this to that to the other meeting and another meeting, you know what? That doesn't mean you can't join any clubs or belong to anything. It just means you can't have to stuff every moment with something. Okay. Establishing or restoring positive relationships create an amazing support system. You can soon, hopefully, invite people to your home to visit and strengthen connections. It takes a village to raise a child. Likewise, it takes a village to build a world community. After the 9/11 terrorist attack, I was inspired to establish connections, relationships with people around the world. I think we've talked about that before. And I wound up having pen pals. You can go online and look up, find international pen pals. And you can do that. And no, it's not all about skymy dating scenes or hooking up with someone from another country. It's about there are lots of people who just want to make a friend in another country, get to know them better. And with today's technology, it's much easier than ever before. So I had uh, email pen pals from Russia, Singapore, Egypt. Some of them I still hear from once in a blue moon. It was important to me to want to repair the fabric of humankind. And these are things anyone can do and everyone can do. Technology separates us. Okay, you're probably going to start to get annoyed with me again, but let's take a deep breath. Buckle your seatbelt. Okay, and we're off. It's much greater. Technology separates us. It's much greater and more devious than we may realize. Before television, people would entertain themselves playing games, making music, having barn dances, having neighbors over to play cards. Oh, and every time I think about when I was a kid and my parents would have friends over to play cards, and I don't know what they ever played, but they played some kind of cards. But we, of course, would have to go to bed. Well, they would have the card table in the living room, and our bedroom was just kind of down the hall and off to the side a little bit. And at one point in the evening, they would take a break from playing games, and the ladies would go to the kitchen while the guys hung out and sat around and smoked and drank beer and talked. And my mom would make coffee cake. She made an amazing coffee cake. She would make the dough and then she'd roll it out and she'd sprinkle it with walnuts and raisins and cinnamon and sugar and roll it up. Then she'd make a circle out of it and make little cuts in the top. And while it was baking, that fragrance would come into our bedrooms. And I'm thinking, why are we in bed? I want some of that. She'd always sneak us in some anyway. But then she would drizzle it with icing. And that was just wonderful. People talk to each other. They discussed their days. What was going on in their lives. They were closer. They were meshed together, woven like a beautiful tapestry, like we're all supposed to be. Now, I'm not saying all technology is bad. Underscore that. I am not saying all technology is bad. I'm saying it's what we do with it that matters, that we don't let it abuse our lives. Um, so after the card playing stuff came the TVs, and even then they'd play cards and stuff, turn off the TV, but then it got to be watching the game or stuff like that. And I remember one of the things that they would always have to watch the Miss America pageant. Everyone would get together and sit in the living room to watch the Miss America pageant. Um, I wasn't very big on that. Can you tell? Okay, so then after that, the games and the card table and everything kind of fell away, and the table was replaced with several tables and the TV dinner. Gotta have that TV dinner. And there went the table talk. We stopped talking to each other around the table. Oh, we may talk a little bit about, what was on the TV, the show, or whatever, but we did not ask, how's your life? What's going on for you? No connectivity. We lost our connective tissue. And if you lose your connective tissue, what happens? You fall apart. Okay. Um, all right. Da, 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 da. Okay, so after that, um, we had the multiple televisions. So we went from the television, where at least people would gather in the same room and learn how to negotiate and watch the same programs. And then everyone had a TV in their own room. And then we had cell phones, so you'd all be having the same thing on TV, but everyone's, and I know I've complained about it before, but it's repeat, 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 uh, you know. So, okay, so and some of the things that happened with this, uh, I said it deteriorated the quality of our interpersonal exchanges. I think that's true. And then instead of our level and quality of communication increasing, it decreased. The impersonal communication via text diminished skills in actual verbal communication and vocabulary. Vocabulary has taken a terrible trouncing. Sup. You say, oh, well, how are you today? No, sup. um, Something's missing there. Real connection. There's a difference between looking in the eyes of a person, even on a screen, than it is to looking into their for real eyes when you can. Selfies, and this actually, it's still going on, but it's not the addiction that I saw back when this part was written. But selfies have become the ultimate self focus as we join the ego urges and try to keep up with the Kardashians. And if you look around at the Kardashians, they don't have it so good these days. They got the money, they got the stuff, that I don't see a lot of happiness. So keep that in mind when you feel deprived or, like they have what you don't. To restore family and community, We must move from being high tech to high touch. It won't be necessary to banish all forms of technology, but will require self discipline. Okay, here's another one. Tighten up your seatbelt another notch because this one may get you. Parents must learn to discipline their children and to teach their children self discipline and discipline themselves. They are watching you. What you do, they will do. If you ask someone to tell a lie, you don't want to answer the phone, say, I'm not here. That says to your child, it's okay to lie. And as we know, lying is an out of control problem now. It's not that one or two people lie, it's that bunches of people all lie together, which is really scary. Um, and so when I'm saying discipline, I'm not saying you have to beat your children or anything like that. I am saying children have to know there are consequences for behaviors and they are accountable and responsible for their actions. And they are accountable and responsible for their relationships. And these are the things, if you're spending your time not talking to each other, just staring at a TV, or a computer screen, there's no way to teach these things. These things happen when you're having person to person conversation. We can know that with technology, it is not what we've got that counts, it's what we do with it. It's right use of the technology. Same thing with chocolate, alcohol, fried chicken. We can restore high touch and reduce high tech abuse by limiting our involvement with it, by claiming control over it with self discipline, and setting boundaries for children. Children need boundaries. We do not get help from the advertising agencies. I'll tell you that. I saw this commercial. Every time I see it, I want to throw something at the TV, but it costs too much to break. But there's a kid sitting at the table, and everyone's sitting at the table having dinner together, which is kind of an illusion anyway. But the mother says to the child, you need to eat clean your plate. And the girl goes, well, I'm not eating it. And she said, well, mother says, you're going to sit at this table until you've cleaned your plate. And the girl says, fine, I don't care. I don't remember what else she says, but something snotty. And so the mother gets out the Kraft cheese and melts cheese all over it. And now it is palatable. The bottom line is that's not okay. That's not okay to watch a child sass their parents like that. I wouldn't have even dreamed of it. And my parents weren't mean. They were really nice. And the other thing, which I complained about years ago, but you notice, I haven't seen them, or at least the way they used to make them. So I think I wasn't the only one that complained. And that was halos. The little, they're like little mandarin oranges, little tangerine looking things. All those commercials for halos were horrible. The children were terrible. And I do like kids, but I do not like kids that behave like that. Um, Children have to learn, but parents have to teach them, not just the teachers. You don't just send them off. Okay. When we set the boundaries, at first there will seem to be a void, a black hole, where we once filled with technology. But that's like any other addiction. You got to get through the heebie-jeebies, the cravings. Um, This is the time to fill the void with something positive to prevent a relapse, letting technology seep back into the space and reclaim the peace of life we won. I was talking earlier about my Lenten practice and turning off the TV when it's on, making sure I'm not watching too much news. I have to temper myself not to do that, and to be very selective of what goes into my mind, because the thoughts we hold in mind manifest in our lives. So I don't want to hold all that stuff. So I get enough news to be informed, and then I try to find stuff that is positive. And then I turn the TV off and just sit here or read. So that's it for tonight. Over, oh my gosh, over 5 minutes. I thought it was going to be short tonight. Um, we're going to continue. We got one more stretch of this, and we will finish that tomorrow. And after tomorrow, we got a really exciting part starting. It's called Emergence of the Warriors. What kind of warrior? Are you a warrior? Well, we'll get through tomorrow, and then the next day, we will start to explore about spiritual warriors. Until then, you have a great evening. Cheryl, I'm glad you got here, late though it was. You are always a delight to have. Okay, so watch it from the beginning, my friend, because I made an announcement about time changes and stuff like that. So have a good one, everyone. Be blessed. Stay on the light side. And don't give in to those false gods.